Think about this for a second. January 2022, Melbourne. The #1 player in the world lands at the airport, the defending Australian Open champion. The man who needs just one more Grand Slam to stand alone as the greatest of all time. 12 days later, he's on a plane back to Europe. Not because of injury, not a family emergency. He's deported, escorted out by federal officials, his visa canceled, banned from returning for 3 years.
Novak Djokovic has left Australia after losing his appeal against his visa cancellation.
No player in tennis history has ever been deported from a Grand Slam. No world #1 in any major sport has had this happen at the peak of their career. And here's the thing I keep coming back to. Some people cheered, not a fringe group, not a few angry comments online. A real, visible, public celebration from part of the tennis world when Novak Djokovic boarded that plane. That's the Djokovic story in a single moment, the most decorated champion the sport has ever produced, and somehow a man who still divides opinion like no other athlete in tennis even comes close to. So what's actually going on here? Why does every trophy he lifts feel like the opening line of an argument? And honestly, is the controversy fair? Or is something more interesting happening underneath it? I want to be upfront. I'm not here to tell you whether Djokovic is right or wrong about anything. This is about understanding the pattern. Because when you look at the full picture, something becomes clear that the headlines never show you. Let's get into it. To understand the controversy, you have to go back, not to 2022, not even 2011. Back to Belgrade in the late 1990s. Djokovic was 12 when NATO began bombing Serbia. He's described practicing tennis while air raids happened, running to shelters mid-session, the country in crisis, his family's business nearly collapsing. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because it matters. The boy who became Novak Djokovic was shaped in a place where the only way to survive was to push harder than everything pushing back. And when he arrived on tour in the mid-2000s, that came with him. Here was a player who decided, before anyone knew his name, that he was going to be the best who ever lived. Not one of the best, the best. The problem? Tennis wasn't looking for a third character. Federer was at his peak. Elegant, effortless, winning everything. Nadal had arrived as the perfect counterpart, relentless. The only man who could push Federer consistently. Their rivalry was genuinely beautiful, and even casual fans remember it warmly. And into that story walked a young Serbian who did impressions of his rivals on camera and started winning matches he had no business winning. People liked him then. He was fun, unpredictable. There was real affection in those early years. And then 2011 happened. 2011 is the year the modern Djokovic controversy was born. He didn't just have a good season. He had one of the most dominant seasons in tennis history. 3 Grand Slams, a win rate near 95%. He beat Federer and Nadal in the same week, repeatedly, sometimes in back-to-back rounds. He was almost literally unbeatable. From a pure sporting view, this should have been a celebration, a new champion, the sport evolving. For a lot of fans, it didn't feel that way. And this is worth being honest about. For a huge portion of tennis fans, 2011 was uncomfortable. Not because Djokovic was undeserving, but because the story they'd invested years of emotion into, the Federer and Nadal story, suddenly started happening less. The finals they wanted stopped appearing. The matches that felt inevitable kept getting intercepted. And the man doing the intercepting was someone they hadn't chosen, hadn't grown up with, hadn't decided to love. For many, the first response to his dominance wasn't admiration. It was a quiet resentment, which is understandable. We all know what it's like to have something we love changed by something we never asked for. That's the first layer. The second one is more personal. Here's something I've noticed about every major Djokovic controversy. Every single one has the same thing at its center. He doesn't compromise. The Adria Tour 2020. During the first lockdown with the calendar collapsed, Djokovic organized a charity exhibition in the Balkans. No social distancing. Several players caught COVID, including him. The backlash was brutal, reckless, irresponsible, worse. Some of that was fair. The timing was awful. But look at where it came from. A player who believed he could do something real for tennis in his region when everything had stopped. He saw a gap and moved to fill it, the way he always does on court. He pushed forward without waiting for permission. And this time, it went wrong. The US Open default, same year. Under pressure in a match, he smacks a ball in frustration and it accidentally hits a line judge in the throat. Disqualified, he walks off, looking devastated. I think about that a lot, because that kind of raw frustration is only possible in a player who still feels the full weight of every match. After all those titles, Djokovic still plays every point like it's the first match of his career. Is that a flaw? I don't think it is, but it creates moments that look terrible on camera. Then, Australia. Whatever your view on the politics, and I'm not making this political, what stands out is this. He had clear chances to make it easier on himself. He chose not to. He held his ground, willing to lose the tournament rather than say something he didn't believe. Was he right? People still argue, but consistent? Completely. The pattern is always the same. Djokovic, fully committed, refusing the middle ground, and the world reacting to the friction. Not because he's a bad person, because he is completely, sometimes inconveniently himself. Now I want to push back, because there's a version of this conversation that's genuinely unfair to him. There's a tendency to treat his controversies as proof that something's wrong with his character, that he's selfish, arrogant, doesn't care about the sport. That reading doesn't survive a closer look. This is a man who rebuilt himself in his mid-20s. Diet, physical prep, recovery, mental training, using methods considered unconventional at the time. He treated his own body as a problem to solve and extended his peak by arguably a decade. He speaks about mental health in sport with a candor that's rare at his level, about the weight of being number one, about doubt arriving before the score says it should. That's not the vocabulary of someone who thinks he's untouchable. He runs a foundation for early childhood education in Serbia. He's funded schools, quietly, across his whole career. And watch him when he loses. He goes to his opponent, looks them in the eye. After the most painful defeats of his life, finals he lost by points, he's genuinely generous. Not performatively. Actually generous. This is a man full of contradictions. Capable of being exactly wrong in a public moment, and exactly right in a private one. And that complexity is precisely what makes him controversial. He can't be reduced to a single story. And our instinct when we can't reduce something is to distrust it. I want to step outside tennis for a second, because I'm not sure this is really a tennis story at all. I think it's a story about what we do with people who refuse to perform likability. The most uncomfortable truth about elite sport is that the athletes who define a generation are almost never the comfortable ones. They're the ones who push against something, who refuse the role prepared for them, who exist too fully, too loudly in a space that prefers its champions grateful and quiet and easy to package. Djokovic has never been any of those things. He grew up in a country the world was bombing. He came to a sport that had already chosen its heroes. He was told his style wasn't beautiful enough, his personality wasn't likable enough, his country wasn't prestigious enough, and he became the most successful tennis player who ever lived. In 20 years, I think the debate over whether he deserves his place will feel strange to look back on. Not because the stats aren't already clear, but because we'll finally have the distance to see what we were actually watching. So is Djokovic controversial? Genuinely, undeniably, yes. But here's the better question. Controversial compared to what? Compared to a version of himself that doesn't exist? One that grew up somewhere easier? Was a little less entirely himself? Because when you trace every controversy back to where it starts, you find the same thing every time. Not selfishness, not arrogance. You find a person who decided very early that nothing would stop him, and then spent 3 decades proving it. That creates friction. It always does. But it also creates something that takes longer to see and is worth a great deal more than comfort. Let me know what you think in the comments. Has his controversy changed how you see him? Or has it been blown completely out of proportion? I have a feeling it's going to get interesting down there. If you enjoyed this, a like really helps. Subscribe for more deep dives like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.